Man, I genuinely feel for Xbox. They cannot catch a damn break. So, if y'all will remember, Xbox delayed Avowed out of November of this year because that weird quote where they were like they wanted to give players backlog some breathing room. And at the time, that made sense because you had Assassin's Creed Shadows on the horizon. It was set to launch in November. And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 at the time had a 2024 date attached to it. So you would assume, that at that time, it's a safe assumption to expect Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to launch sometime around the release of Avowed, rather it be the same month in November or sometime in December. So I would say Xbox made a pretty smart, calculated move, and they delayed Avowed to February of 2025. But guess what immediately would follow that? As soon as Xbox delays Avowed to February of 2025, Warhorse delays Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to February of 2025. And it's like, okay, well, two big RPGs in 1 month, that's not the biggest deal in the world. You can kind of live with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 taking up some of your space in February of 2025. Well, just the other day, Assassin's Creed Shadows, a game that was set to launch in November, also got delayed to February 2025. And not only February 2025, February 14th, 4 days before Avowed launches on February 18th. And oh, if that's not enough competition, how about Monster Hunter Wilds releasing in February, which we didn't know about until the state of play that just took place, February 28th for Monster Hunter Wilds. And then, oh, on top of that, how about at Tokyo Game Show, Yakuza, the pirate Yakuza, whatever the fuck they're calling it, that got announced for February of 2025. And the thing that's such a bummer is you look at all of those other games we're talking about, they're all established IP. Maybe Kingdom Come Deliverance to a lesser extent since this is the only, this is the second game from that franchise, but that's going to be a huge game when it releases. And obviously Assassin's Creed built up decades upon decades at this point, and we have Yakuza that's just a new game every damn year practically. And so those fan bases in Monster Hunter, same thing, decades of fan being built up, that fan base being built up over the decades. And so those existing fan bases are already excited for their respective games. And then you have Avowed, which by all intents and purposes, that's a new IP. I know it's attached to Pillars, but the entire reason that Avowed was created was because Pillars wasn't selling well. Pillars 2 did not sell well at all. And they were talking about, look, we're going to have to change up we're going to have to change up this series in some drastic way if we want this thing to catch on, if we want to continue in this universe at all. And then so you have the creation of Avowed, a more Bethesda-style, mass appeal, Outer Worldsy style Obsidian RPG. And so you have this essentially new IP going up against all these established juggernauts, and it's just like, it's such an unfortunate turn of events where literally the two biggest games that they were competing with in November get delayed, and not just get delayed to 2025, but the exact same month that Avowed is launching in February. And I know they wanted to open up that window for Game Pass and for their first party releases to have a little bit of breathing room. And you even see that kind of slipping to some degree, where The Alters was supposed to come out in November of 2024, and that was going to be a day one Game Pass title, not first party, but it was going to come to Game Pass day one, similar to like Stalker. And so The Alters recently got delayed to 2025, so that leaves a little bit more room in that November window for where you could have slotted in an Avowed right before a Microsoft Flight Sim, or right before a Stalker 2. So I'm going to pull up on the screen for you the GameSpot 2024 release calendar list. And as you see, man, it is barren. There's not a lot launching in November at all. And even if you go down to Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 launching November 9th. Oh, shit. Okay, so yeah, that's only a day apart from Stalker 2, which is launching November 20th. I thought it was a few days apart from one another. So, I mean, that gives you even more breathing room to launch earlier in November. Like, if you could slot in an Avowed November 10th, you got 10 days separation between that and Stalker 2. I really don't see Flight Sim as any kind of direct competition, but, or even late December, early January, which, theoretically, based on the reason that they delayed the game initially, which was quote unquote to give players backlog some breathing room, if that is true, then you should be able to push this up to a December or to a January to buy yourself some breathing room. And so to me, it's like, which is more important? Spacing out your releases for Game Pass, or ensuring that you're setting these games up for sales success by limiting, the competition by not launching your game in such a stacked window, such a stacked month where you have games of a very similar genre that are established franchises. And that's the dilemma that Xbox is kind of, they're faced with a weird situation where they have to consider two things, where they have to consider their publishing arm, but they also have to consider their Game Pass arm, where they don't want to overcrowd releases for Game Pass. But then you look at something like Hi-Fi Rush, which from I believe it was Jeff Grubb who reported on it, stating that it didn't meet sales expectations. And then you see that Aaron Greenberg kind of refuted that to some degree, where it's like, oh, Hi-Fi Rush was a success by all our internal metrics. But it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Does that mean that Hi-Fi Rush did well on Game Pass numbers but didn't sell well? And if that's the case, you look at the fate of Tango, the obviously the developers of Hi-Fi Rush, and they end up getting shuttered. So that kind of leads you to believe that making sure that games are positioned to sell well is more important than making sure your Game Pass window isn't overcrowded. Xbox has themselves in a really weird situation, and I feel for them on this one, because I don't really feel like, I feel like they made the smart move initially, and it's just, once again, they can't get a win. They can't catch a break. They delay the game, which was an intelligent move at the time, to get out of November, away from Assassin's Creed, away from potentially Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And then they jam-pack themselves in a month with Monster Hunter, Kingdom Come 2, Assassin's Creed, Yakuza. Like, they couldn't have foreseen that, because they were the first one to make the move to February. And then everyone else launched their game or announced their game to launch inside of February after Avowed already was lined up to release in February. And I mean, with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I could see that getting delayed. I could see that getting pushed to spring 2025, even fall 2025, potentially. So maybe there will be a window there that opens up. But yeah, February 2025 is just way, way too packed already. And we're sitting here in October. And it's the unfortunate thing where Avowed is going to be the game out of all of these that gets trampled. And at least in the sales aspect of things. And if that's the important factor, if there is anything to be gleaned from Tango being shut down because of lack of sales for Hi-Fi Rush, I damn sure do not want that happening with Obsidian. I fucking love Obsidian. The Outer Worlds it was my favorite game of the year in 2019. Alpha Protocol is one of my favorite games of all time. I love that studio. So it's just like, I'm kind of spooked. I'm scared. I'm like, make a move, get the fuck out of February.